This is chapter 15 of the speaker's primer, and this is on informative speeches. To inform means to make the audience aware of a phenomenon and to explain and deepen the audience's understanding of that phenomenon. There are a number of different types of informative speeches that you could do. You can do a speech about an object. I actually had a student who 20 years ago or so explained how a carburetor worked, or what a carburetor was and what it did for the car. You can do a speech about a process where you're trying to, it could be anything from process of how maybe you should take care of your car, or it could be something about process of how your body works and certain things that might inform us about in ways that would help us be more healthy. Speeches about events. This is a fairly rare speech for class, but you could do that. Speeches about concepts. You can take a concept that helps us understand a certain topic that maybe we don't understand. It talks about, it mentions everything from evolution to existentialism, religion. There are concepts in our society, even political parties that might need better explained. Organizational patterns that could be used. You could do chronological, and that would be steps in a process possibly. You could do cause and effect, which would be probably a little more common in a persuasive speech, but it can be done in an informative speech as long as it's not done in a way where you're advocating specific steps be taken. Problem solution, this is included here. Many books would tell you this needs to be done more in a persuasive speaking setting than an informative, but you can do a problem solution. Here's a problem, here's the solution, and you can do it in a way where it's being presented as information versus being presented as something where you're advocating something be done. A spatial pattern covers sort of points on a compass. One of the most common is really topical, where you just cover different topics underneath that subject. You might want to, there may be something we're trying to explain a difficult concept. You might distinguish essential characteristics of that create us an understanding in us. You might compare one thing to another thing, or use an analogy or comparison helping us understand something. Sometimes things are difficult to picture. A graphic, a visual aid may help us picture something in a better way, the concept even in a better way. Sometimes things that you might say that are informative might be difficult to believe. Typically, if it's difficult to believe, that you're looking more at a persuasive speech, however. However, there are things that are transformative where the audience may just not understand something as well as they need to. You might give someone a more accurate understanding of something, and it's not really done as a persuasive, just sort of more of an enlightening thing that can be done as well. It talks about transformative explanations having 4 parts: acknowledging everybody's everyday theory, acknowledging why their understanding seems plausible, but explaining why the impression is correct, and then explaining the theory and illustrating why that theory of it is effective and accurate. Some strategies to help your audience understand and remember what it is you're saying. One is repetition. Repetition is a powerful thing, both in persuasion and informative speeches. There can be rewards. Audiences will pay more attention if they think they're going to be rewarded for doing so. Your reward for listening to me and listening accurately and carefully is that hopefully you'll do a better grade on your final exam, and also do your speeches better. It can be as something as primary or primitive as show and tell, where you show us something and explain what it is and why it's important to you, possibly. You may, in an informative speech, build on what your audience already knows. That's a powerful thing to do. You can use humor. Be careful on humor. We've talked about that already. Another important thing that you can do is check your audience's understanding. At the end, maybe ask the audience questions to help make sure the audience does understand what you explained, just in case something needs clarified. Goals and strategies for informative speeches. For speeches about objects, models are very useful. And the less familiar your audience is with the object, the more description you will need to provide. Some tips for informative speeches about processes. You might want to detail for the audience when and how one stage moves to another. You might explain the connections between the main points, between the steps, and why those steps are all need to be in a certain order. Some tips from informative speeches about events. You have to lay out the details very carefully and identify the important people involved, and explain very clearly what happened during the event. And there also needs to be a relevance to the audience and why the audience should know about this and why it's a good thing to know more about this event. Then in doing informative speeches about concepts, and one of the biggest things is concrete and hypothetical examples to help us understand the concept better. And that is chapter 14 on informative speeches. Probably not chapter 14, chapter 15. If I said chapter 14 at the beginning, I apologize. This is chapter 15, and we posted that as chapter 15 when you get there.